Welcome to Inside the Gaming Lounge, presented by That Nerd Show. It's the ultimate gaming show for reviews, great gaming discussions, fun facts, and history. It's a show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Marcus Blake.
I'm Victoria Winfrey.
And I'm John Winfrey, aka the Road Trip Gamer.
And if you think that a married couple can't enjoy video games, these two are going to prove you wrong. Alright, welcome to our first show. This show will be all about doing gaming reviews, great gaming discussions, and we're going to bring you a little bit of fun facts and history about classic games a little bit later. For future episodes, we will have more gaming news for you, but in the meantime, the only thing that we're really going to announce today is that this is February 22nd, and it is the release of Anthem. If you haven't gotten your copy yet, it is available on PlayStation 4 and Xbox. But instead of talking about more gaming news, I thought it'd be fun to tell you guys a little bit about why we got into gaming. What was that pivotal moment in our lives that turned us into professional gamers for That Nerd Show? Victoria?
For me, I actually started when I was really young. I've been playing with my dad since Sega. I'm 30. so I started with Sega, and we played all the way up until Xbox, and then I kind of moved past him with VR, and he can't
And for you millennials out there, the Sega Genesis was an older console system, and it was glorious. So.
Yeah, started with Mortal Kombat, and now I play non-stop any game I can get my hands on.
Well, Mortal Kombat's a classic. I mean, I would be disappointed in you if you, as a gamer, if you didn't play that game. I'm just saying.
Oh, raised by a single dad, loved really violent games from the get-go. So.
Good parenting tip. John, how about you?
Growing up in Oak Cliff, I think my parents liked me getting into gaming because it kept me, out of the streets, out of wanting to get involved with anything, run around. I could go on my bike and drive around the park, but there's nothing to worry about if I'm at home playing on the Nintendo.
I think that's the best anti-drug message ever. If you sit at home and play video games, you won't get into a gang and do drugs.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best babysitter ever.
Again, we like to give good parenting tips. For me, it was when my mother, that's right, this is a picture of me in 1988 in my mother's 80s hair, got me the original Nintendo system for Christmas. And it was all downhill from there. Came with Duck Hunt, the original Mario Brothers, and my mother was smart enough to get two other games for me and my cousins that Christmas, Tecmo Bowl and Ice Hockey. And while I do love Blades of Steel for fighting, of course, Ice Hockey was where it was at because some days you just have to beat the Russians in hockey, and it was a very 80s game. And then I bought my first game for my birthday 2 months later after that Christmas, and I will tell you what that is a little bit later because it is going to be our featured classic game of this episode. But we're not going to spoil it quite yet. Alright. We'll be right back, and we're going to get into some gaming reviews for you about the latest games that have come out over the past few weeks. Welcome back. We're going to bring you some gaming reviews, about 4 games that have come out over the last few weeks, starting at the end of January. This is the time of year that spring video game releases really get into full force. So we wanted to start with some of the games that we've played and let you know if they're worth buying. And we're going to actually start with Kingdom Hearts. And Victoria's going to talk about it, but I think the hardest thing is not to let her keep going.
I was extremely excited about this game. I played one when I was 14. It took over my life. I beat it at least a dozen times since then, especially because they keep putting it out on new consoles, so I just keep playing it. I've waited 13 very long years between 2 and 3. I didn't play any of the small handheld games, so the storyline was really confusing, but I was unbelievably excited. I harassed you, I remember.
Yeah.
So I could talk about it all day long, but I mean, I have to say this is probably one of the best games I've played in a long time for a lot of different reasons. And I started out already disappointed. I didn't like the world selections. I felt like Disney really missed an opportunity to bring back some of the classic worlds for the kids, because we've been playing. I played it when I was 14, so most of the people my age have kids that are old enough to play this game. And so they did a good job of catering to that. There's the Frozen world, there's the Tangled world, but honestly, I feel like they should have done something that was a little more classic, like Mulan or like Lion King. You could bring the new generations to appreciate the classics, especially because they're coming with live-action movies soon with that.
Well, they had. I'll admit, I'm not a Kingdom Hearts guy. This is the first one that I've actually really played, more than about 30 minutes. I do love the hack and slash aspect of it with Disney characters, and it's gorgeous. But I don't know everything that's into it. So my question really is, is Aladdin in there? See, I think the reason they didn't put Aladdin in this game is, Will Smith wanted too much money.
He's in the first one.
Oh, okay.
And so they don't want to be too redundant.
Yeah, well, Aladdin, Will Smith.
The genie is there, though. I mean, they still keep the summons.
Oh, okay.
So you get a couple of shout outs to the old ones, which is awesome.
Mufasa.
Another summon is having a Lion King character. Like they still do their best to be inclusive. I just feel like and the whole part about you not knowing what's going on in the game, I played 1 and 2 religiously, and I had no idea what was going on in the storyline whatsoever. They replaced a lot of the Final Fantasy characters, like almost all of them, with their own characters from like the Chain of Memories part, some Japanese releases that had their own characters. So like it doesn't matter how married you are to the franchise, if you didn't pay the small games in between, you have no idea what's going on in that storyline. Like I didn't.
I'll be honest. I just want a good hack and slash game with anime and Disney mixed together.
And it's got you covered.
Right, I know.
And the combos are nuts.
Well, somebody like me, I mean, I'm not, I don't have kids, so it's my nieces and nephew. It's what games am I gonna play with my nieces and nephew?
I like it because it really does. You asked me earlier what got me into video games. Fighting with my dad over that console was like half of my childhood. Like I wanted to play, so it's cool that there's a game where the kid and the parent can take turns.
Right.
I don't have kids. That's not something that I really have to think about. But all my friends do.
Right.
So.
That's why I think Kingdom Hearts was really 3 was good for this generation. I actually like the way they went with the worlds of having Frozen and Tangled. And those worlds, because it allows a household family to buy that game and the kids to enjoy it just as much as the parents. There's still Toy Story. There's still
and it's so fun to watch.
Right.
It's so fun to watch. It's incredible for a parent to be able to watch their kid play. For a kid to be able to watch their parent play.
Well, I think that was like the great thing about like NES too when it first came out. I mean, you had your violent games, your sports and everything, but you also had games like Mario where it was kind of a family deal, or Duck Hunt. My dad did not care for video games. He was not going to buy a console. And we were over having dinner at a cousin's house, and he's playing Duck Hunt. Like, this is pretty cool. So you're going to shell out your $100 to go buy us a console? No. But I think my point is you have to find those really good games that you can do as a family that, it's catered to a wider audience.
No, it's good and it's bad. I have to admit, I felt really bad for parents when I got to the Frozen world because I know that they just let that song die. Let it go, just stop being everywhere. And there it was again. I was like, oh, those poor parents. Frozen's back again.
Well, it's not like they're not going to have to get ready. I mean, Frozen 2 is like coming out this year, right?
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. So it's not a bad marketing idea. I felt really, there was a rumor that there was going to be a Mulan world. And then obviously there isn't. And so there was like a lot of us that grew up as Disney kids felt like, man, there was just such a good opportunity to revive that stuff where kids don't have to be like, Monsters Inc. was such a good one.
Right.
So I loved that was there.
So let me ask you this. We always judge games. Are they worth, the retail price for the game?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
100%. But actually not because of the storyline or its ability to play with children. The reason it's worth the money is the mini games.
Right.
That game, if you go through each world and choose to focus on the mini games, you can do the cooking with Ratatouille. You can do all the pictures. It's brought to a modern world, so there's more like mini tasks. If you chose not to follow the storyline and beat the game, you could spend months playing around.
Huh, okay.
The worlds are endless. It's a lot like Zelda, where every part of the map is touchable. So
Okay.
you can just run around forever.
I'll remember that when I do get it from my nephew, so his parents won't be completely annoyed.
It's really good if you want to stick your kid in front of it for the summertime, because just finding the stupid Disney, the little Disney symbols that you have to take pictures of is like maddening. I still haven't found like a dozen in each one.
Right.
So,
again, the best babysitter, you know. When
it really is.
Game.
So if you're asking if it's worth the money, 100%.
Right. Well, the next game that we're going to talk about, and this is one that I get to personally review, is Metro Exodus. I am going to say this when it comes to this particular game. I have not played the previous two all the way through. I do like the series. I think it's a great, interesting series, especially if you like games with dystopian worlds and stuff like that.
No, I do.
So I feel like, you know, the ones that really do like the series are going to like this game. It's gorgeous, and you are continuing the story where, you know, not to completely give it away, but, you know, you're dealing with them realizing that it's not just Moscow where people are living underground, that the entire world didn't die, so it is expanding the story. The best comparison that I can make for this game, if you want to put a combination of games that you like, it's like playing Fallout and Wolfenstein together. And Wolfenstein 2 was, you know, that was like one of our favorite games of last year. Or not, well, 2017. I know it is 2019 now. Right. So, I mean, it's one of those where, you know, again, dystopian world, you're fighting, you know, weird enemies and stuff. But, I mean, Metro Exodus, that's not your biggest danger. You've got mutants and zombies and stuff running around. It's an interesting take when you're trying to cross a river in a boat and you've got this mutant fish trying to eat you like you're in Jaws or something.
It's pretty Fallout-y.
Yeah.
Is there a survival aspect to it?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. My biggest complaint as going through this game so far really is that it is kind of glitchy in how you move. Like, it's hard to, like, run away.
So more like Fallout than
right, yeah. So I feel like some of the bugs from Fallout 76 are, like, you know, coming over, but...
Like a virus.
Right. I'm sure there's a patch that'll fix that. But for everybody that was complaining about Fallout 76, I'm like, you know what, this is a good game to buy.
You buy Bethesda games knowing that you're going to love the storyline and get so mad at the glitches. You just buy a game knowing.
Right, it is. And I am definitely enjoying the story for what it is. I don't know if I would personally pay $60 for it. I mean, it's a good 7 or 8 for me. It's not... Yeah, I compare it to Wolfenstein, but Wolfenstein is like just so awesome. This one... I figure for most people, if you catch it on sale for 40 or 50 bucks, it's worth the buy, and you'll have fun. I mean, it's only 12 chapters. It's not a huge game. But I think you will have fun with it, and I think, again, if you're a fan of that series, then you definitely need to play this. Are you ready for the most challenging gaming experience in the world? If so, welcome to the Ultimate Gaming Tournament. Are you pretty good at video games? Can you hold your own going head-to-head against opponents? Then the Ultimate Gaming Tournament is the perfect challenge for you. This is a multiple video game bracket tournament where you are playing a new game each round. You never play the same game twice, and your opponents are randomly selected. To make it more challenging, you won't even know what games you're playing until they are announced right before the tournament. You can go head-to-head in a fighting game like Mortal Kombat, or you can end up playing a sports game in one round like FIFA. Maybe you'll be challenged in a first-person shooter. To win an Ultimate Gaming Tournament, you gotta be good at all kinds of games. But even if you're not, you can still win by being the luckiest gamer in the world. There are no unfair advantages in the Ultimate Gaming Tournament. You don't even get to practice playing the games before the tournament starts. That's the beauty of an Ultimate Gaming Tournament. And to make it more challenging, you can try to psych your opponent out using the Psych Out option. Multiple video games, no preparation. Just grab your controller and start playing. How far can you get in the most challenging gaming tournament in the world? Check out our website and see how you can host an Ultimate Gaming Tournament and join the Ultimate Game League. Welcome back. We got 2 more game reviews for you of games that have come out over the last few weeks. And we are going to start talking about Far Cry New Dawn. This is a sequel to Far Cry 5, which was one of our absolute favorite games last year. If you haven't played Far Cry 5, you definitely should. I think it was the best when you're dealing with a creepy cult out of Montana, and it made the game even more creepy with this weird gospel music being played while you're killing people. So, Far Cry New Dawn, it's set about 5 years after Far Cry 5 and the way it ended, and you guys have done the bulk of the work in this game. What do you guys think so far of it? We'll start with you.
Well, I did the review for Far Cry 5, so I was really excited to get this one. I really like it. I think they did a really good job of expanding on things. The music, first of all, I love that you mentioned the music, because the music is awesome. They added some hip hop, they added some like some South African band that we follow, so I was super excited. Right. The storyline is just as creepy, but the antagonist is two like really hot twins, and so I really like it.
Well, there you go.
Like, it worked out for me. Like, it's an extension of the story. It feels more like DLC, but it's great.
Okay. What?
Yeah, just a little bit more in depth. It's definitely like a really intense DLC. It's a full game, but priced at about half as much. It's $30. So it's like you're paying for a DLC for Far Cry 5. You don't have to own Far Cry 5 to play it, and I do recommend it by itself. Really, it's almost like getting Far Cry 5 half off with a little bit more intricate. Not intricate. What am I trying to say? It's yeah,
a little bit more in depth with the story.
Yeah, well, the story, it's really like the weaponry, the makeshift weapons are really awesome. You have a saw launcher on there made out of motorcycle parts that like ricochets off walls.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
It's very violent.
It's just taking the normal things that are in Far Cry 5, which is a feasible story, but it's taking it and dropping a nuclear bomb on it.
Does Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead guest star in this game somehow? Because I feel like that's a weapon Daryl would have.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like that. It's some post-apocalyptic makeshift weaponry mixed in with the realistic story of Far Cry 5. If you want to call Far Cry 5 slightly realistic.
Right.
But I do recommend it because I think the price point is great. I think that the gameplay is great. The storyline, it's good, but it's all about doing the small things in Far Cry 5. Hunting, fishing.
Yes.
It also still has the big sandbox open world too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Far Cry. I mean, it's a pretty big open world for...
Which is great for me.
What is really considered kind of a DLC.
I like getting lost in geography. He did a lot of the storyline work for the game, and then I did a lot of the just like honestly clearing the landscape. I like gathering components and rescuing people, and I failed to do a lot of side missions. Well, not failed, but just took a long time because I'd see somebody that was being taken, and I had to do something about it, and I had to get my perk point, so I just would never get to a destination.
I will say they dropped the ball on a few things. I think that the missions can get a little bit repetitive, as it does for a lot of people, you'd say. A lot of people have a big problem, and I would agree that the protagonist, there's no personality to it. There's no voice at all, no voiceover.
That's very true.
You just choose a man or a woman in the beginning, and you never hear from them again or really see their face almost, besides in-game screens. But overall, it's a pretty decent game. I'd say for the price point, it's definitely a good
one. Well, I mean, especially if you're continuing that world, considering how Far Cry 5 ends. And we don't necessarily want to give you a spoiler on that, but there's a reason it ends that way so you could get this game.
Well, and it's really good, because when I played Far Cry 5, I was really just, like, I decided to go for the storyline, you know, just to go ahead. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take care of it. And then when I beat the guy, I couldn't go back and rescue the other people. And I was like, well, all the bad guys were gone. I was really disappointed. And so, well, at least I got to go back and finish some goals. It's like, you get to see some familiar friends. I mean... It's fun.
Real quick, they have a co-op mode to it, right?
Yes.
It's online only co-op. You can play 2 players.
One of those?
Yeah, one of those, exactly. You can play with 2 players fully with the game, including the storyline and everything, and I think that's really great. Online, I think the loss of split-screen co-op it's really hurting the industry, and it's hurting games, period. I want to be able to play, we love playing together, and I want to be able to play with her on the same screen.
Right.
Yeah, if you don't have, we share a household, obviously. We share a PlayStation, we share an Xbox, and so if you're not in a household, like if you're not playing with your friends who are in 2 separate houses, then you just can't play together.
Right.
There's no sense in us both having a PSN when we live under the same house.
Yeah, well, and I think you're right. I mean, that's what makes a lot of games fun, is when you can have that co-op mode. In fact, the Star Wars Battlefront game that came out in 2015 that everybody complained about, because it was too expensive at the time, but now you can get it for like $3 used at GameStop. It's great with the co-op survival missions. So.
Well, Borderlands nails it.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Right. All right, the last game we want to talk about is Resident Evil 2, the remake. Not necessarily a reboot, but it's a remake adding a little bit more like to the story, or turning it on its head, so to speak.
We call it a reduce, reuse, and recycle.
That's a great way to.
That's exactly what
great way
Reduce,
to
reuse, recycle, remake.
remake. That's right.
That's how we do it in the video game industry. One of the things I love about this game is I'm glad they have brought it back for the newer consoles because it is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Very. I'm not saying that it wasn't great back in the day when it originally came out of the PlayStation 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, PS1.
Or PS1. You're right. It's a PS1 game. But the fact that it's in high definition, 1080p, and really with the 4K TVs that we have now, just fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of the gameplay? I mean, is it better than what it was originally, or no?
Yeah, absolutely better. I think it was the remake. I think it's done right. A lot of games have been coming out remake lately. Remaster is a more popular thing, to just take the same exact game and smooth out the graphics that you would see in the original or the older consoles, the PS1s, the old Sega Dreamcasts and GameCubes, stuff like that.
Even Skyrim.
And now we're seeing, what's that?
Even Skyrim.
Yeah, even Skyrim, you see a remaster. This one is a remake. So they took the game, the overall story. You still have Leon Kennedy, the first day on the job sergeant, or first day on the job, cop.
Right.
And Claire Redfield in search of her brother. And it's the same game, same story, but it is a complete remake. It is completely, they wiped out the game. They didn't use any of the original structure to make the game. This is completely remade with new maps, but it's the same exact story. You're still going to be going through the police station, and you're going to make your way to the Umbrella Corps labs, and so on. And you play. You choose to play as Leon or Claire. You play a full run through, and then you can play as the other.
Right. My biggest takeaway, the reason I liked it, and I kind of take a page out of Alex Moore's playbook, who did the review for that nerd show, who really does love horror games. It's with the high definition, the way it looks, it intensifies the gore, the horror aspects of this game, especially if you're playing it late at night and your room is dark and stuff like that.
That's the only way I played it.
Yeah,
that's the only way to play a horror game.
Okay, there's your first lesson, gamers, on how you play horror games. If you didn't get that,
solid dark room, surround sound.
So let me ask this question, because again, it always comes down to, is it worth the money? And that's with games being retailing at $60. There's so many great games that come out. Some are great, some are not. Is this worth buying at $60?
At $60, I'm gonna say I doubt it, and I wouldn't run out and go grab it right now, because I'm willing to bet it's gonna go down to 40 pretty quick. The game can be beaten in a day, and both stories it can be beaten in probably 2 days. And so for that reason, the replay value is there, but I think it's going to go down pretty quick, and then I would snatch it up as soon as it goes down.
I foresee this game, coming to PlayStation hits. Or the Xbox Game Pass pretty quick, which I think makes it a little bit more worth the money. But I'm glad that they did it, and I'm glad that it's out there, because it was fun to revisit this game.
It's one of the greatest games of all time, Resident Evil 2. One of the highest selling games of all time. Right. It's the highest selling in the series, and rightfully so. The way that it came on and expanded upon the idea of Resident Evil 1 and became more action-oriented, but not too much, and still held on to the horror roots. I always appreciated Resident Evil 2. It really got me into the horror genre back in the PlayStation 1 days. I was so excited to see it come to the newer generation. I think they did it right.
And there you have it, gamers. If you want to play this game and you want to wait for it to come on sale, it's definitely worth the buy. But if you really love this game, then I don't think you're going to mind spending $60.
It's true.
All right, I'm looted up. You guys want to do tilted? Hold on a sec. Our other guy hasn't landed yet. What?
Yeah. I'll be down in a jiff, fellas.
Dude, where are you going?
Hey, chill down. Chill down, I'll be right. I'm gonna get this.
You're gonna get us all killed, you idiot!
Hope you were nice this year. Because right now, all the coolest Fortnite gifts are available at GameStop. Joy to the players.
Welcome back. This is the part of our show where we have our great gaming discussion. Our editorial question, if you will. Since we were talking about Resident Evil 2, the remake, I thought it'd be interesting to ask this question, especially with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox 2 about to be released in the next year or year and a half. So the question is, should gaming companies automatically remaster certain games, classics from the system, to coincide with their new consoles? We see a lot of remastered games. For example, instead of getting Skyrim 6, or I'm sorry, Elder Scrolls 6, we got a remastered edition of Skyrim Elder Scrolls 5.
Mm-hmm.
For the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th.
Right.
For the 100 millionth time.
Right.
Even my Alexa plays Skyrim.
Right. Right now, you can spend $20 a month and get PlayStation hits where they are kind of remastered, you know, going back over the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And of course, Xbox does the same thing with their Game Pass. But I think that there are certain games that should automatically be a requirement. You know, they're best sellers. And as you mentioned before, Resident Evil 2 is one of the best-selling games of all time. So I want to know from you guys, do you think it should automatically be a requirement to coincide with new consoles being released?
I mean, absolutely. It's a game developer and a console, like a new console's opportunity to guarantee that younger generations are going to be involved in gaming. It connects generations. We talked earlier about Kingdom Hearts, how people that started playing it were teenagers, well, they have their kids now. It's to connect it. So you do that with the new consoles. Yeah. You do that and keep the gaming tradition alive.
I agree with the concept, but I think that I don't think there's big enough difference between the PlayStation 3 to 5 to warrant a new console every time. I'd say like when a serious generation comes out, a game-changing generation, that's whenever we should see remakes and remasters and stuff like that. Like for instance, the Resident Evil 2 came out with PS1, and now we're at PS4, and it's a great time to push that out.
Right.
Because graphics have changed dramatically since I think it was '99 when the PlayStation 1
So you
came
think
out.
that there should be a certain timeline of when we do it?
Yeah, like every 10 years.
Right.
That's a big generational gap and a big graphics gap, because otherwise you wouldn't need a PS3. We're still in 1080p, just barely get it into 4K, and PS3 did 1080.
Well, I think there are certain advantages to doing it. Like, for example, if I had to pick a game series, and I'm glad that they remastered, it's one that I never got to play on the PS3. And it's one that I finally picked up last year, and it was the Uncharted series, 1 through 3, which they put it all on one disc. You know, it's high definition, strictly for the PlayStation 4.
That's very cool.
Right. And it's gorgeous. I mean, you can still tell how old the first Uncharted is, but it looks great, and the gameplay was great. You know, you talk about this 10-year gap, you're looking at 10 years since Uncharted 2 was released on PS3 this year. So having this kind of remastered edition, which I finally got to play last year and recognized how great of a game this is and why it's one of the best games of all time. The other example I have is for Xbox, putting all of the Halos on one disc, the Master Chief Edition, and remastering those.
Oh, yeah.
Which now you can get them on Game Pass.
Genius marketing move.
Right, and you talk about the generation getting into games. My nephews are old enough now to start getting into Halo, and you know, you're talking about the first Halo game that came out, what, 18 years ago? 17, 18 years ago now?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
So if you also take the concept of remaking a game, it was a huge deal in 2013 when they rebooted the Tomb Raider series.
Yep.
New story, came out with 3 great games over the last 5.5 years, and it was designed purposely for the new console. I mean, Tomb Raider, the definitive edition, which is the one you should play, that coincided with the release of the PlayStation 4. So, is there a particular game, like for you guys? I mean, I've mentioned like 2 series, you know, being rebooted, but is there one particular game that you think should automatically be remastered when we have a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox 2?
Automatically?
I'm ready to answer that question. Well, luckily
he has it at the tip.
Luckily, my game is already being made. It's just taking too dang long. The Final Fantasy VII remake is arguably the greatest game of all time, at least since the PlayStation 1 has come out. At least since then, you know, if you don't want to count the old Super Mario stuff like that paved the way, that created the foundation. But Final Fantasy VII, undoubtedly the best RPG game ever made, and it's being remade, but it's also been in production for like 5 years already, and they canceled the game that's already been made and wiped it clean, and they started anew last year. So we're not going to see it again until the PlayStation 5 at least.
Oh, well.
As a Kingdom Hearts fan, I do not feel bad for you. If it hadn't been for remastering the games for the PlayStation 3 and 4, I would have given up hope and just thought, trailers only. The rest of my life, trailers only.
Well, if the rumor proves true about the PlayStation 5, where you're going to be able to play, older PlayStation games on there if you still have the disc, which that better not just be a rumor. You need to do that.
We all still have the discs.
Exactly.
Square Enix, get it on it. Get on it. Final Fantasy VII.
Get this right.
We need it.
That's
and
right.
then do 8 and 9 and 10 while you're at
If
it.
you think we're not counting the minutes like we did with Kingdom Hearts, you are wrong.
I will say that there is one particular game, and I will constantly bring this up. I will. It's like beating a dead horse, so to speak. Fight Night Round 4. You're not even giving us a new boxing game, apparently, because UFC is so popular, but I don't understand why you can't remaster this. It still looks good, but can you imagine if you just tweaked it a little bit here and there, how great it would look on a PS4 or Xbox One? So if you're waiting to do this with PlayStation 5, fine. I'll wait that long, but damn it, give me my boxing game. Give me my boxing game.
Well, boxing's making a comeback, and ratings are going back up with the new guys like Tyson Fury and Wilder and everything.
Right.
So maybe that's what they're waiting for, is that star power.
Because they're not demanding like $1 million like Pacquiao to be on the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, like, it's funny because, you get Mayweather, who brings these phenomenal fights and all this attention to boxing, and then he's too expensive.
He's gone now, too.
Yeah. And he says, we'll see.
No. I still say the Legacy Edition is the best aspect of Fight Now Round 4. Create your own fighter. Take them to the top. That's what I did, and then I started a book series.
I like that with Madden. You take a kid.
Yeah.
And they grow into a champion. It's
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. So, but we'd like to know what you guys think. So you could definitely hit us up at that Nerd Show. Tweet us.
Leave a comment
question.
Yeah.
Right. At that Nerd Show is our handle. So, now, the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about classic gaming. Welcome to our featured classic game, Double Dragon, and this one I am particularly fond of. We invite you to our little classic gaming center on set, and you get a chance to watch John and Victoria play the original Double Dragon on the NES. The first game, Double Dragon, was released in arcades in 1987. It was developed by Technos Japan. The series starred twin martial artists, Billy and Jimmy Lee, as they fight against various adversaries and rivals. The original storyline had their girlfriend being kidnapped by a gang, and they having to fight their way through the city and all these adversaries to rescue her from the big boss. Double Dragon would go on to have four games, 3 sequels. Double Dragon 2, The Revenge in 1988, Double Dragon 3, The Rosetta Stone in 1990, and they also had another version of Double Dragon 3 called The Sacred Stone in 1991. The 4th game was released exclusively for the Super NES in 1992, titled simply Super Double Dragon. It was the last game produced by the original team at Technos. The Game Gear game Double Dragon is not a port of the original arcade game, but it is instead an entirely new entry in the series that has gameplay elements that are very similar to Streets of Rage. Now, the greatness of this game is it was one of the first beat-em-up games for the arcade and the NES era. It did not have a strict co-op player system until Double Dragon 2. The original Double Dragon, for 2-player, you would have to switch off on who was playing in each mission, much like the original Mario Brothers. But when we got to Double Dragon 2, you could fight together as brothers, and that was the brilliance of the evolution of this game. Most people do not realize that it also inspired an animated series that came out in 1994. It only lasted 1 season, and a super hokey early 90s movie starring Van Damme, Jean-Claude Van Damme. The series and the movie and the animated series never captured the magic of this great video game, and it has always been one that's been fun to go back and play. All the other sequels were just as good, but I always have a little nostalgia for the original Double Dragon, and that's why we're talking about it in this first episode. It's also one that if we were going to remaster an NES game, much like the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, this is the one that I would really love to see. Two brothers in a great fighting game hitting the streets, and would love to see it on the Nintendo Switch. But I invite our audience out there that if you've never experienced this game, you can find some emulators and some apps to go play it. But if you get one of the NES classics that usually have about 100 to 500 games on the hard drive, you will usually find all 4 Double Dragons there. But this is our featured classic game.